The Rangers claim a wild 4-3 win over the Red Wings. Barclay Goodrow and the bottom six go to work. Matt Rempe is back out of the lineup, and Jack Roslovic loses some playing time.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1041 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Rangers go into Detroit. They are matched up against another one of these desperate teams, or these bubble playoff teams in the Eastern Conference. It's basically a jumbled mess as far as the last two playoff spots are concerned. There are now only two playoff spots in the Eastern Conference yet to be determined. It's whichever team is going to finish in third place in the Metro, as well as whomever the second wildcard team is going to be. But regardless, Rangers went into Detroit, back and forth, seesaw game, and they were able to find a way to get the job done. A 4-3 win, another 2 points for the Rangers as they hopefully close in on the President's Trophy. The race is still very much, up on the line for that. A lot of teams gunning for that and hoping to have the best record in the NHL. But one of the biggest storylines for me in this game is one that started developing really in the first period, and then you really noticed in the second period, and that is that the bottom six for the New York Rangers absolutely cooked on this night. All six guys in the bottom six looked very good. Felt like they were always in the attacking zone. They were constantly outworking their opponents, winning some 50-50 pucks, creating some scoring chances, and in some cases, actually scoring some goals, including Barclay Goodrow. Now, Goodrow obviously has had a little bit of a tough season, particularly when you look at his offense or lack thereof. Be that as it may, this is somebody that goes to work every single night. And listen, you can be somewhat underwhelmed by Goodrow's game. You can look at his contract and, be kind of concerned about how much they're paying him and what the future might hold for Barclay Goodrow. All that stuff is a conversation for a different day. The bottom line, Barclay Goodrow is on this New York Ranger team right here, right now. They're going to be going to the playoffs. I know every now and then, some Ranger fans will kind of kick up the idea of, make Barclay Goodrow the healthy scratch, make him the odd man out. Can't for a second envision that happening. He might end up, down the stretch here. They got just 5 games left, I believe it is, for the Rangers. It's possible that there could be a night where they just give him a veterans night off. I don't even see that happening, to be honest. Bottom line, when the playoffs roll around, got to believe that Barclay Goodrow is going to be out there. Per Sam Rosen, Barclay Goodrow went more than 40 games between goals, and he ends up with 2 goals in this game. And so that makes now 3 goals for Barclay Goodrow in his last 4 games. I suppose hockey can be weird in that way, but it's just nice to see Goodrow. Again, there's things you can nitpick, but this guy does go to work every single night. He gives it everything he's got, and nice to see him getting rewarded with a couple of goals recently, including the 2 in this game, the first of which gave the Rangers a 2-1 lead, and it occurred with only 29 seconds to go in the first period, so obviously a critical juncture at that time. And then he ends up scoring a second goal. This one tied the game at 3-3, and it came just 25 seconds after Detroit had taken the lead. So both these goals coming at some important times in the game for the Rangers and for Barclay Goodrow. And it's nice to score goals of any kind. I'm sure if you're a player in the NHL, and especially if you're somebody like Barclay Goodrow, who's been struggling to score goals this season, but to get some big goals in a game like this, it's got to be very, very gratifying for Barclay Goodrow. And to break down this goal that tied the game at 3-3, you got Braden Schneider passing out of the corner to Jonny Brodzinski. Brodzinski moves the puck up to Jimmy Vesey. Vesey back to Brodzinski. Brodzinski with a backhand pass to Vesey. He deflects it to the goalie. Vesey's going for the deflection, gets a little piece of it. Goalie stops it. Rebound goes right to Barclay Goodrow. He's right there and buries the rebound, ties the game at 3-3. And obviously, again, a big goal in this game for the New York Rangers. So just happy to see Barclay Goodrow, again, just a blue-collar player, get rewarded with a couple of goals. And I've been saying this. I said this after he scored not too long ago. Put this man down for a big goal in the playoffs. I don't know exactly when it'll happen or how it'll happen, but we have seen Barclay Goodrow even before he came to the Rangers. Some of the other teams he's played on, the Sharks, the Lightning, there have been times in the past where this guy just seems to have one of those Johnny on the spot kind of goals. You just need a big play. You need a big goal in a big moment, and Barclay Goodrow comes through. We have seen that, and hopefully we see it at least one more come playoff time for the Rangers. I mean, these goals tonight are all well and good. They're not like they're big within the game being played here, but again, we know the Rangers are going to the playoffs, so they're not big in that sense. But I still think, again, playoff time, when everything is on the line, you could see Barclay Goodrow, or I could at least see Barclay Goodrow scoring an important goal for the Rangers. And something else I want to mention here as far as Goodrow is concerned, he got into a fight in this game, so just an assist shy of the Gordie Howe hat trick. Basically, there's a big collision between Goodrow and Gossespierre, and next thing you know, Fabry is challenging Goodrow. They kind of just wrestle each other down, but regardless, Barclay Goodrow doing a lot, very noticeable for the Rangers, and he wasn't the only one. I got to give some props to, I mean, again, it's really the entire bottom six, but I thought that the Cooley, Wenberg, Kakko line really did a nice job in this game. You had these guys, basically out there just going to work, and it felt like they spent the entirety of this game in the attacking zone. They very rarely does this line ever seem to get pinned in their own zone, and obviously, they're a line that's kind of a go-to line for Peter Laviolette, a good defensive line that you can go to. They were out there on the ice with about 3 minutes to go in this game, so obviously earning some trust as well. And Will Cooley, he scored a goal in this game. It was forced by Kaapo Kakko, and I'm going to go ahead and give Kakko a little bit of an unofficial assist here. We like doing that on Locked On Rangers. I like to dole out these unofficial assists because basically Kakko is pressuring his guy in the neutral zone. It leads to a turnover. Will Cooley ends up with the puck, basically turns around, shoots, and scores. And what a rookie season for Will Cooley. Sam Rosen was talking on this broadcast about how, Cooley really doesn't get the recognition and the credit that he probably deserves. I mean, he has had a really nice rookie season, and it really feels like the sky is the limit. Will Cooley probably was less than 50-50 to make the team out of training camp, but, I mean, he doesn't care about those odds. He went out there, and he made it happen, and just basically never looked back. I mean, I know he was a healthy scratch not too long ago, and, he'll have a hiccup every once in a while. Rookies do that. He had a turnover against Pittsburgh that led to a breakaway goal, but whatever. Will Cooley has had a great season overall, and scoring a goal here to give the Rangers a 1-0 lead at that point. And I mentioned the unofficial assist for Kakko. It's really too bad he didn't get the actual assist here because that would have run his point streak up to 6 games. It ends at 5, but Kakko, again, one of the many players on the Rangers that seems to be playing his best brand of hockey down the stretch here, and obviously we hope that continues into the postseason. Going to keep everything rolling in just a second here. I want to shift our attention to the very simple fact that Matt Rempe did not play in this game. I know, a decent amount of fans, I'm sure, were a little bit upset about this. I get where you're coming from. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Also going to talk about Jack Roslovic losing some ice time in this game, and we'll get to all that fun stuff in just a second. First, though, we definitely would like to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Sleeper. We are coming down the home stretch of the regular season, Ranger fans, and the Rangers have been on top of the Metro Division from coast to coast. But regardless of where we are in the current standings, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey. Because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Panarin or Lafreniere or Trocheck or Igor will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. To win 100 times your bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8-player stats. You heard me, Ranger fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention, nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you will get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so we're going to go ahead and keep everything rolling here, and I do want to shift our attention to Matt Rempe. He obviously did not dress for this game, and obviously the last game he only played for 2 seconds because then, of course, we get the 5v5 line fight to start the game. 4 players on each side ejected, including Matt Rempe, so he was gone. I get why some fans were upset about this. Obviously, Matt Rempe does give this team a spark. Their record when he's in the lineup is very good. I don't have it in front of me, but it's a sparkling record that the Rangers have when Matt Rempe plays. Obviously, he gives this team a lot more toughness, a lot more physicality, and there's basically nobody in this league that can really push him around. There's some guys that can go toe-to-toe with him in some fights, and, Matt Rempe hasn't won all his fights, but I don't think he's really lost any of his fights either, at least not by decisive, margin to whomever he might be fighting on that night. As far as like the toughness and physicality aspect, yes, obviously Rempe provides a lot of that for the Rangers. But as I've said multiple times on here, I don't think the Rangers necessarily lack either of those things, even when Matt Rempe is not in the lineup. But obviously when Rempe's in there, he does provide more of it. And if you want some evidence of that, by the way, go back and watch the 5 fights against the Devils. I mean, did the Rangers lose any of those fights? Obviously, K'Andre Miller won big. Ironically, if anybody lost their fight, it might have been Rempe himself. Obviously, he's up against McDermott, who's a tough player, and it was very, very close. I'd call it a draw. McDermott was up early, and Rempe came back. VZ won his fight. I mean, again, I don't know that anybody for the Rangers lost their fight. They were, the last time I checked, a handful of games ago. The Rangers are like 7th in the league in hits per game. So this idea that they lack physicality, grit, toughness, I don't know where it comes from. I don't think there's too many games this season where the Rangers have lost because they've been pushed around. They've lost because of other reasons. Regardless, though, again, I still get the appeal of Matt Rempe, throwback player, it's old school hockey. And obviously he's going to watch out for his teammates out there. And he's clearly not somebody to be messed with. But I just want to throw out this idea to everybody. You can love Matt Rempe and you can want him to be in the lineup and you can feel really strongly that he should be in the lineup because there's a lot of people that feel that way. And for the record, when the playoffs roll around, I would like and I would also expect Matt Rempe to be in the lineup. We'll see how they go. It could depend on the opponent, whoever the Rangers end up playing in the first round. But you can feel that way and do that without bashing players like the aforementioned Barclay Goodrow, who ended up with a whale of a game in this one, and also Jonny Brodzinski, who has a feel-good story and a guy that just goes out there and busts his tail every single game. Some of the things that people say on social media about these players, I mean, it feels personal almost. And these guys are not bad hockey players. And again, if you prefer Matt Rempe over both those guys, if you prefer Matt Rempe over somebody else on this team, you're well within your right. And I get where you're coming from. I really do. But let's not bash guys that have maybe not been the biggest contributors, but both those guys in one way or another have helped the Rangers get to a point where they have the best record in the NHL. So that's got to count for something. I also wanted to point out the fact while we're talking about these players, hockey stat cards, they grade the performance of every player in all these games. And the top 4 highest rated Ranger forwards in order for the Rangers in this game, Barclay Goodrow, Jonny Brodzinski, Jimmy Vesey, Will Cooley, all bottom 6 players for the Rangers. And obviously that's really cool to see. It's nice to see the bottom 6 contributing in a lot of different ways, not the least of which is offensively. Obviously the playoffs roll around and you hope you can get some secondary scoring. And hopefully this is just kind of an omen of what's to come down the stretch here and once again into the playoffs. We also, though, have to talk about Jack Roslovic. He did not play a whole lot in this game. To be exact, Jack Roslovic in this game against the Red Wings ends up with only 8 minutes and 7 seconds of ice time. That was the second fewest among Ranger forwards, or it was the fewest among Ranger forwards. And the second fewest for Ranger forwards was Will Cooley, and Will Cooley had 12 minutes and 46 seconds. So you're basically looking at, again, Roslovic the fewest, Will Cooley the second fewest. You're looking at a difference of about 4.5 minutes. And I've kind of been not really avoiding it. We've just kind of been talking about other things, and I've been giving Roslovic some time and, enough games to put his best foot forward and see what he can do as a Ranger. But the cold hard truth is that he just hasn't really done a whole lot for this team. I mean, he's not really, as far as points, he's not really very far off the pace that he was at with the Blue Jackets. So maybe, he's about where you would expect him to be. But the game before this one, we'll give Roslovic some credit here. He did make a nice play in that one. He found a loose puck, got around behind the net, around a defender, passed out in front, and that did lead to a goal. But there's a lot of nights where Jack Roslovic just is not all that noticeable. And in this game, he ended up having a seat for a while. Capo Caco was getting a little bit more run with Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider. And of course, there was an instance in this game. It was when Detroit tied the score at 1 goal apiece, where the Red Wings basically scored a goal off of Jack Roslovic. Basically, Quicken made a really nice save and might have gotten some help from the post as well. But the Red Wings get it back in. They end up scoring. The puck is played in front. Roslovic is there, but it kind of like bounces off of his body, lands, in front of the net. Andrew Kopp is there. The token former New York Ranger scoring a goal against the Rangers. Of course, that happened. Andrew Kopp scored. Roslovic, in one way, I suppose it's a little bit of a bad bounce here, but he had a chance to make a play on the puck, was not able to do so, and Kopp is there on the doorstep, and he scores. And again, right now, it just feels like Roslovic hasn't done much. Like I said, I've been trying to give him a fair shake. I feel like we haven't really talked about him a whole lot on this podcast. Part of the reason for that is just there's just not a lot to say on most nights, and there's other things happening. You got a 5-on-5 line fight, and you've got Igor and Quick both putting on a show every single night. You've got Panarin having this historic season. We have, some things where we're talking about like Gustafsson or Jones, who's going to be in the lineup. Roslovic's kind of under the radar, but not really in a good way because he's just not doing a whole lot offensively right now. The numbers aren't like horrible. I mean, in 15 games as a Rangers, he's got 2 goals and 5 assists, so 7 points. He's a -1 in that time. But again, there's just too many nights where it feels like he's invisible out there. And this is one of those. And obviously in this game, seems like Laviolette and the coaching staff not particularly pleased with how he was playing. And it costs him as far as, time on the ice is concerned. So we're going to keep everything rolling in just a second here. First, though, definitely just want to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at all the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, so how about an unsung hero for this game? I'm going to go ahead and give it to Jonny Brodzinski. Again, we talked about this early in the episode. You can want Matt Rempe in the lineup all you want. I get it. I get the appeal. I get that, he obviously does a lot of things that can help this Ranger team. He gives them a spark. He gets them going. But again, you can believe all these things without any Jonny Brodzinski slander. Obviously, Brodzinski doesn't have the upside that a lot of players on this team do. But as I mentioned earlier, busts his tail every single game. He ends up with 2 assists in this game. Multiple chances to score. He can really shoot the puck and shoot from a lot of different angles. There was an offensive zone draw in this game. I want to say the second period, and a couple of chances, right off the face-off, and then he got it back later. Another slap shot from Jonny Brodzinski, and unfortunately the puck would not go. And then in the third period, I believe it was, there's a scramble in front of the Detroit net, and I don't know how this one stayed out. It was a really nice save by Alex Lyon for Detroit, but that line buzzing again, and he's trying to stuff the puck home from the doorstep, and just a great pad save. It wouldn't go. That's unfortunate, but Jonny Brodzinski ends up with 6 shots on goal. As I mentioned, got robbed a couple of times, 157.1% of his faceoffs. He was a +2, the 2 assists, the 2 hits, and he did all this in just 13 minutes and 24 seconds of ice time. So Jonny Brodzinski, the unsung hero. I also want to talk a little bit about, we're going to get to Jonathan Quick in a second, too. We're going to close with Quick. I want to talk about a couple of recent signings, though, that the Rangers made. And this happened a couple of days ago, but been trying to work my way back to it. One of these signings is 21-year-old left winger Kalle Väisänen. And I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but I will, as always, defer to Sam Rosen the first time that he mentions his name. Bottom line, Väisänen signs a 3-year entry-level contract. Väisänen was drafted by the Rangers in the 4th round of the 2021 draft, number 106 overall. This pick originally belonged to the Ottawa Senators, but the Rangers acquired the pick along with Nick Ebert in exchange for Vladislav Nemestikov. And this trade occurred way back in the day in October 7th, 2019. I want to say Locked On Rangers we were like on episode 4 or 5 when that happened. We should go back and listen to it. Maybe we'll have like a listing party and see what I thought about that trade when it happened. But yeah, that was really in the true infancy of Locked On New York Rangers. That was like the first move that the Rangers made that I was able to discuss on this podcast. Regardless, though, Väisänen does sign his ELC. Väisänen is 6'5", 194 pounds. This year with Liga, he played in 58 games, 9 goals, 5 assists, so 14 points. Was also a -9. Then in 9 playoff games, 1 goal, 3 assists, and was a -2. He's also twice represented Finland at the World Juniors. Most recently last year, he had 1 goal and 1 assist in 5 games and was a +2. In 2022, he also won the silver medal with Finland, and they lost to Canada 3-2 in the gold medal game. The other signing for the Rangers is 21-year-old defenseman Victor Mancini, a 2-year entry-level contract, former 5th-round pick by the Rangers in 2022. He went number 159 overall, third to last pick of the 5th round. 6'4", 220 pounds, played for 3 years at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, 110 games, 4 goals, 19 assists, a +4 in that time. And he actually just recently played his first game with the Wolfpack. And while we're on the subject of the Wolfpack, who boy are they in free fall. They have now lost 11 out of 12 games. And, 3 of those losses are either in overtime or the shootout. But man, when you're losing 11 out of 12, I mean, that's just semantics. It doesn't even really matter. They're still losses. And what's even more striking than the 11 losses in 12 games, this team just cannot score. They cannot put the puck in the net. In 10 of those losses, 10 of the 11 losses that they've had recently, their 11 most recent losses, the Pack have scored 2 or fewer goals in 10 out of the 11 losses that they've had. I mean, that is just an anemic offense. Now, obviously, losing Jonny Brodzinski and Zach Jones to the Rangers, I'm sure has done them no favors whatsoever. But, I mean, sooner or later, it's got to be next man up. Somebody's got to, step into a bigger role. And unfortunately, they just haven't been able to do that. And like I said, the Pack, a good enough start this season, but things have really gone south very quickly. And, we'll keep an eye on them going forward. Also want to talk about Jonathan Quick before we call it a day here. He is the Ranger nominee for the Bill Masterson Trophy for perseverance, sportsmanship, and dedication to hockey. And I think it's a great choice by the Rangers to go with Quick. There's a lot of people saying, oh, he's cooked, he's washed, he's this, he's that. And what a season this guy has had. Former Ranger winners of the Bill Masterson Trophy in the past are Dominic Moore, Adam Graves, Anders Hedberg, Rod Gilbert, and Jean Rattel. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's going to win it. Every team nominates somebody, so we'll see. I mean, honestly, I don't even feel... I mean, I'm sure it's a nice trophy to win, but even to get the recognition from your team as the nominee, I think that's a pretty big deal for whomever gets that recognition. And again, I mentioned this in a recent episode too, but the best compliment that I can pay to Jonathan Quick right now is that this is not a surprise anymore. There's nothing even the slightest bit surprising when Jonathan Quick goes out there, stands on his head, has the kind of game that he had against the Red Wings in this game. He obviously gave up the 3 goals, but he stops 31 of 34 shots, made some unbelievable saves, some really athletic saves, some unbelievable glove saves in deep where you're ready to put a goal on the board for Detroit. Just a heck of a game and a heck of a season, heck of a resurgent season for Jonathan Quick. And man, there's got to be some teams around this league. And, I'm not going to like name names and try to figure out which ones they are off the top of my head here, but there have to be some teams around this league that look at what Jonathan Quick has done this season for $800K, or is it $825K? It's somewhere in that ballpark. It's definitely 6 figures. And there have to be some teams that are absolutely kicking themselves. I mean, some of them will bring in Quick as, a really steady veteran backup and a good locker room presence, the role that he's playing with the Rangers, there's got to be a couple of teams where he would be the starter. And I don't know how well Jonathan Quick, at his age, 38 now, if he would be able to hold up and take on that kind of a workload that the starter gets. I mean, it's fair to wonder if he'd still be able to do that. But man, I mean, there's got to be some teams out there that would at least give him a chance, at least give him a look in that role. And they don't get that chance now, and they don't get that chance next season either, because as we know, Jonathan Quick, not too long ago, signed that 1-year extension to remain with the New York Rangers. So just a heck of a season. Cannot say enough about that job he's done. And it sounds like, basically everybody in that Ranger locker room, they feel that he's somebody that's a good presence there and brings that championship pedigree and just a locker room leader. And that's the kind of stuff you want to see. Sam and Dave Maloney, where we're talking quite a bit about that, the positive influence that he's on the team, and also Igor Shesterkin as well. And while we're talking about that, one more thing I want to do before we call it a day here. Sam, as we saw at the start of this game, was not with Joe Micheletti. He was with Dave Maloney. Joe Micheletti was with his family in Minnesota. Apparently, Joe's brother, Tom, passed away recently. And so Joe and his family are attending, the funeral, and I'm sure just wanting to spend some time together. Obviously, just some sad news there, and all the best to Joe Micheletti and his family. And we hope he can get back into the booth in no time. Dave Maloney's great too. That's where we're lucky as Ranger fans. There's no shortage of great announcers, great analysts who can step in there and do a great job. And again, we're very fortunate in that regard. But again, all the best to Joe Micheletti and his family. And whenever he's ready to come back into the booth, we'll look forward to welcoming him back. And can't wait to hear him and Sam, calling a couple playoff games for the Rangers as well. Figure we can call it there. If you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that is @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to the Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.